Welcome to the Coast Podcast. I'm Emily, a virtual assistant agency owner who left Amazon in 2019 to build my dream.
And I'm Whitney, a freelance writer and communications consultant who never felt at home in a cube farm.
We wanted to learn from people who paved their own ways like we did. So we created this podcast to talk to others who are brave enough to pick a different path. Creatives, entrepreneurs, people doing their careers and their lives their way.
Join us as we make new friends, get inspired, and show you beautiful paths less traveled.
Not every road leads to the coast, but the ones that do come with a great view.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Coast. My name is Whitney Popa, and I own a communications consultancy in Edmonds, Washington.
And my name's Emily Given. I own a virtual assistant agency in Lynnwood, Washington. And today on the podcast, we have Erika Lynde, who is the owner of Home for Heart, which is a safe space for women to find themselves and live their lives to the fullest. Erika, thank you so much for being here today.
To be here with you guys.
So tell us more about Home for Heart and what you do. Tell us about your business and what it embodies.
Okay. I would consider myself a multi-passionate entrepreneur, and I do a multitude of different things. But if we're going to round it out into one aspect, it was exactly how you worded it, which is just creating a safe space for women to establish a strong foundation for themselves and live their own lives to the fullest, and leading them in that space of their own personal journey and what that looks like, because it's different for everyone.
So when you talk about creating a safe space and when you're working with women, what kind of modalities are you using and what does that look like?
Yeah, I love to work a lot with intentions and just trying to navigate who you are as your most authentic self, whether that's using human design, enneagrams, astrology, and just basing it off what your personal experience was as a human. Everyone's is going to be different, and it's going to change who you are and how you see the world. So I like to work a lot with just I would say, how you visually see the world and how you receive it. I do a lot of shadow work, working with limitations that people put in front of themselves, those blockages, why they're there, what their purpose was, because they were to keep you safe. They were to keep you protected, and you put them there for a reason, and try to reroute the neural pathways that created that connection in the first place to be a little different, to kind of change that reality. So I work a lot with subconscious, and like I said, a lot of intention work of really just creating that life that you want to live, and just being your full authentic self, and not facing that judgment of society expectational norms.
Yeah. Let's say somebody signs up with you, like what's their journey look like from sign up to, is it a monthly coaching package? Are there multiple options? How do you support people?
It's going to be different for everyone. So it's been really hard to kind of navigate that, because different people need different aspects. So honestly, I consider myself more of like a mystic and intuitive. So we're going to work together and discover what you do need. Because for some people, it's going to be 2 months of just having that side-by-side coach who's going to be there to support you through some sort of transition. Some people are more in depth. Some people, there is going to be a lot of work that needs to be done, and it might be a year that we're working together, and we're monthly walking the beach and talking about what's going on for you, and there to hold you in your space and hold that intention with you, because I think creating a container for yourself and holding and maintaining that is not always easy when you don't have the support behind you. So that's what I do, is kind of create that support system that's going to hold that container and intention with you. And when you have that energy really flowing in that direction, that's where we're heading. That's where we're going. And it's going to look different for everyone. It's some people that's going to be getting out into nature with me and a really, really deep connection. Some people, it's going to be a lot of self-expression that they need to do. So maybe it's more painting work. Maybe it's more physical. Maybe you have a lot of body work. I work in a very holistic way. There's not one way to do anything, and I don't just do one modality. I work with the whole spectrum of things. So that is actually what I'm best at, is having knowledge in multi areas and bringing them all to one place so that I can help you in the way that you need, because you are different. The person I work with is different than the next person I work with. And what you need is going to be different than the other person. And so that's what I hold for you.
I was going to say, like, I really liked how you touched on the different modalities, because every time I see you, every time I meet with you, Erika, I feel like I'm discovering a different part of you, if that makes sense. And that makes sense that you utilize all of those things into your coaching, into your work with women. Like the first time I met you was at an event, networking event, I think. I don't know. We were at a connect. Yes, Danica's networking event. And then we connected over coffee, and you made me that beautiful handmade mala.
Mm-hmm.
And it's cool how you just incorporate different pieces of spirituality in your healing work. And I know that you're very artistic and you paint, and hearing you say that you're using painting with your clients is pretty cool. So I think it's really interesting how you took all of these things and these pieces of you that you love to do and incorporated them all into one space.
Yeah, it's definitely one space for me to work with people. But if I can walk you along my own journey, I found that using these different modalities is what helped me really, really find my center, find my heart. And that's why I named my company Home for Heart, because it brought me to my own home and heart center. And I feel like that's what I help you navigate, is what's truly here. What is your truest desire? What fills you? What brings you joy? I think is so important to discover that, to embody it, and to embrace it. Because if you are doing something you love, it inspires and brings that to others, and just allows space for other people to discover that on their own. And I think that's something that I hold for others as well. I had a very traumatic childhood. I know Emily can relate to that. I'm sure you've talked about it on the podcast before. It's been a journey for sure. And so I started this self-discovery when I was probably about 16, very interested in astrology. I started studying astrology. I started doing tarot at that time, and no one in my high school was doing that. I was very strange. I felt like people looked at me very differently as this person. I was a bit of a loner, which I was almost a little ashamed of, but I've learned over time that is actually who I'm supposed to be. I think, Whitney, you're a 2-4, correct? From human design as well?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That too, I didn't know that I was actually just really embracing it at that time and really doing that self-discovery, which I needed to be on my own to figure out. So I'm very well-traveled and done a lot of stuff culturally, getting into all these different spaces. And I felt like that was very eye-opening to be in all these different spaces and seeing the different struggles that people go through. I felt like I was very open to receiving that and seeing that in others. And it was almost like the world just kind of offered to me a piece of everything as I moved a lot, as I met all these different people, which is also that networking. And just, it was almost like everything was just kind of brought to me. When I was living in Massachusetts, I got very sick, and I was trying to figure out some self-healing ways. I would say that was probably around 2015 is when I discovered herbal medicine, and I found that Western medicine wasn't doing anything for me. I was on all these depression medicines and nothing was going anywhere. And I just gave up. I was like, I'm going to finish this and fix it on my own. I was working with a therapist at the time, which was really good, as I got off my medication and started to embrace more clean eating, healthy eating, but also natural and Eastern medicine experiences like acupuncture and herbalism. And so I studied herbalism, the Boston School of Herbal Studies, and started learning about plants, getting really connected and involved with nature. And that seemed to heal a piece of my soul. And I felt that, and it felt really, really encouraging, but there was another piece that was missing. It never felt like it was full or that I had everything all together yet. And so as I moved to California, I embraced the one thing I found that was kind of similar from the East Coast to the West Coast was yoga. And so I got involved in my yoga community and I started studying yoga, and I have 200 hours certified at the moment. And I studied something called Sri Tantra, which is all about inner abundance and really, really finding that fulfillment inside. And that kind of brought me to a new space of like all that, just again, another piece of me. It was like discovered and found. And same with that astrology. I had always been, I was a Cosmo girl, loved cosmetology, a Cosmopolitan magazine when I was in high school would always flip to that astrology and be like, oh, what's my horoscope kind of thing. And when I started to really find that in depth, I want to say in 2019, I started studying astrology and learning how to read charts and stuff like that, and linking that to the human design at that time as well. I found so many pieces of myself, and as they all just kind of connected like a puzzle. And I found that it wasn't in one place that I found who I was. It was in these multiple places. There were all these different pieces of me. And I find that it's almost in like the mirrors of the people that I'm meeting and these communities that I'm meeting that are reflecting to me these pieces of myself that I've been missing. And I think that's so important to have that multi-aspect, to have that mirror dimensional, to see that there's a connection of a multitude of things that can help you find that space for yourself and that deep grounding connection to your heart.
Yeah, I've struggled with the 2-4 my whole life because it's like the anti-community with the community. Like I want to hermit, but I have a very specific community that I emerge out of. So sometimes those things battle against each other, and human design helped me a ton in giving myself permission to be like, you are this dualistic, contradictory person, and that's okay. You're built that way. It's okay to want people sometimes and not most of the time. And so that's been super freeing for me. And the thing that keeps popping into my brain as you're talking and thinking about all these different modalities is it seems like you co-create with the people that you work with. So somebody comes to you, they might not know exactly what they need. So you start meeting them in these different places, because I feel like I'm a little bit further down the path of like, I've tried all these things. I know all my answers to these tests, but like the intuitive part of you would kind of discover, okay, this is where I want to try to start with Whitney, and what she's saying and what I'm feeling kind of have to come together to help her meet those goals. Is that kind of how your approach is with people?
Exactly. Yeah, I get to know you as a person and just kind of allow you to have space to feel heard and seen as well, and be vulnerable. It is a space to be vulnerable. It's a safe space.
Does it take people a while to warm up to that, or do they feel already right, like they're coming to you ready to do the work for the most part?
Definitely depends on the person, but I feel like I can read into that. I do use like oracle cards and kind of help them kind of develop the questions on their own and the answers and what they see. I love like Rorschach kind of stuff. So like imageries. What do you see? What do you hear? What are you experiencing? What is coming to you? Because the way that your mind works and what's going to show up for you is just going to be so different than everyone else. Mm-hmm. I love the science behind it and the neuroactivity and the way that the mind works and the way that it stores information and just creating that connection in the brain. It's really interesting. And most of the study that I've been doing over the past 3 years has been a lot of just, neuro work. Really interesting, the science behind it, because if you can put that behind a lot of these metaphysical, what we would consider magical things, right? They are magical in a sense of manifestation and stuff like that. And it's totally possible, but there is scientific like quantum level of that you can actually rationalize, which I think is great for both mindsets, right? That left brain and that right brain and how they mesh and go together.
Yeah, I find Joe Dispenza does a good job with his books.
Very good. And so last year I've been working with a program called the Mysterious Woman program. And her name is Suzanne Anderson. She's actually Seattle-based. She just actually finished and wrote her second book that was just launched. I was at the book launch on June 13th. She's really incredible. She works a lot with more women and leadership roles, such as coaching and stuff like that. But she really, really embraces these archetypes and how they've just kind of just the way that your mind has been structurally set up in the way that society is created it and created that construct and structure of how you see the world. And I think that just for work in itself is just really incredible.
You know the name of her latest book?
Walking, you make your path by walking, I believe. Yeah, she had a husband who unfortunately committed suicide, and it was either like, step off the bridge and kind of keep walking and moving forward, or just letting your life end completely with that as well. And so she just really walked through that path of struggle. Back to that human design concept, she has that channel of the heroine, I believe, is the channel is called. I also have the same channel of that trouble, that struggle that you have to go through in order to make your space and really create that path that's just individual and authentic. And it's just not the road that everybody takes.
So going back before you started Home for Heart, what did you do professionally?
Wow. I have done so many things. I've always just really been an artist at heart. So really I was painting murals and doing paintings, and honestly painting anything I could get my hands on. I still do that, which has just always been a piece of me. But I also did not like the idea of selling my artwork, as there was just a really strong vulnerability there. It's more of a very personal piece, which I needed to learn to accept that that's okay, that everything that you love doesn't need to become a profession, which was okay to step back from that. And then before that, which I've been doing, I was also an esthetician. So yeah, I did aesthetics. So at one of the first places I was introduced to mindfulness and yoga was my aesthetic teacher was a yoga teacher as well. And so she would bring meditation into the classroom, which was very, very fulfilling for me as a new mom. I had children very young. My oldest just turned 14. I had him at 21. So we were pretty young parents. And again, it was that road less taken was made for me. That path was made for me. It's just not what normally everyone does that works out for them, but rationally it's what worked for me.
Our next question is how did you go from aesthetics to art to doing this? Was there a big one moment, or was it more of a collective healing of your childhood experience? Some people have those aha wake up moments, and some it's more of a culmination of the journey you've been on. So what do you think was what led you to where you are now?
I think I did have an aha moment. It is, I was working with my therapist, and it was cognitive behavioral therapy, and I was very new to it. And I didn't realize that I never heard my own voice in my head before, and the things that I had been saying to myself. And the way that I had been thinking, it was almost just being able to slow down my mind enough to hear and process what's being said, to be in that conscious realm, to be consciously aware of the subconscious mind creating the story and repeating itself in your head is just, that's an aha moment. For sure. That was a moment that I just kind of stepped into my own spatial awareness of wow, I have this whole story in my mind of this life that I've been telling myself I had to have, and this space that I had to be in, and this person that I had to be in. That's not me. That's why it's so hard. That doesn't have to be a struggle. It doesn't have to be this hard. I can just change. I can just do what I want and just explore that space that actually gives me joy. It gives me fulfillment. And that's when I went in and I started doing that self-healing. That was back in the 2015 round. I think I was about to have my Saturn return then. I was so sick, and I just stepped into that of no, I see this so clearly. There's a space. There's this glowing path of this healing path that's just, it's that way. It's not this way. It's not linear. It's not straight. It's, I'm going off the path. I'm going around. And that's when that was the moment I stepped off the path. I was I'm not going this way anymore. This is not for me. It was a moment. And I just remember I was sitting in my garden, and I was just having a crying session, bawling my eyes out in nature, looking at all this beauty and being why can't I feel this? because I see it. I want to embody it. I want to feel that. I want to be this. I'm a piece of that. That's a piece of me. Why can I not bring this to the inside when it's all around me? And I just had this like thought in my head of like what I was telling myself is like, oh, you can't have that because you're not good enough, right? That's like one of the biggest stories we tell ourselves is we're not good enough to have something. And I just said, screw it. I don't believe that actually. I actually like this person and I like who I am. So yeah. And that was actually the same year. It was like multiple things happened. My husband got scoped out by Facebook, pulled over. They're like, oh, actually you need to go to California. So I moved over there, moved across the country away from family. It was like this big turnaround point for us. And it was that just like big moment of just, I'm not staying this way. I'm going.
Yeah, that's super resonant for me because what I've noticed about like my personal work and coaching programs that I've been in and healing journeys in every single dimension of my life is the through line is questioning the stories that we tell ourselves. And the first part of that is becoming aware of those stories. And I've had so many visceral moments in the past couple of years of realizing stories I've been telling myself that I was completely unaware of. And it's all interconnected, but like a lot of things with money and that artists have to be starving, that you can't make money doing your art, that these types of lifestyles and things and experiences are only available to certain types of people. And I've been shown things on my path to dispute those things, that that's not necessarily true. So then I'm able in a very tangible way to tell myself that's available to you, or that story isn't necessarily true. And then the little things that pop up in my mind, like you were saying, of I finally started listening to my own thoughts. And I notice myself, I kind of speak more slowly now than I used to because I'm thinking as I'm talking and I'm evaluating the things that are coming out of my mouth. And sometimes it frustrates me because I want to work faster or just not, it almost feels like I'm editing myself as I'm talking, but it's more so that as I'm saying these things, I'm asking myself, is that true? And even though it's been a vulnerable and tough ride at times, it's really been so helpful for me to think as I'm saying something out loud and listening to the stories that I'm telling, having that little moment in each little part to say, is that true? Is that true for you? Does it have to be true? Like,
not.
It's been really, really like hard and helpful.
We love hearing that because that's exactly what I want to help people do is just kind of discover those stories. What's holding you back from being able to receiving because you're allowed to. And this to receive.
And is that yours is an important question I've been asking myself in the past year too. Because we carry so much of things from other people and we're not even aware.
Yes, 100%. And or even if it's just, if it's yours to do, I feel like a lot of things that I did throughout my life, it was like just feeling this force to submit to society expectations and do what was expected of me instead of what was actually mine to do. Well, because I felt like I was being pulled in this other direction. And that's what led me to this space. And it's kind of this ethereal realm. I definitely live in this space land a little bit, which I do well here. I'm made to be in this in between realms, and I think that's okay because I can hold that space for others. It's like this gatekeeper kind of like opening the door and showing you a little bit, and then also keeping you grounded.
Mm-hmm. Well, if it makes you feel any better, I have a client currently who is a very successful doctor of aesthetics, and he says we're working on this whole website relaunch and rebrand project for him, and he says, when I'm not with you, I'm in outer space. So it's the same thing, like hippy dippy, airy fairy, having a great time, and he's owning it and bringing that energy to like how he helped mostly women, but you know, people of all gender identities and races, ages, etc., express themselves more fully. Like his whole thing is showing your highest self to the world and helping you get there.
100%. Apparently I need to meet him.
Yes, he's an experience. He was actually just texting us, my mom and I, she's a long-term client of his, and he was at the Wishing Stone in Edmonds yesterday, and he's like, I'm going to be put on restriction. I spend so much money here, and the altars that he makes for himself, the way that he has decked out his office, which is on First Hill in Seattle, it's an amazing experience. So we brought all of that energy and fractals and fairyland into very light touches on his new website so that he can really show people the full experience, because he also is like he calls himself a psychic too. So
yeah, that intuitive nature.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's why I love to do. I make some of those malas, like Emily, I made you that mala. I love to have these intentions set into this mala, because every time you visually see that, even if you're not thinking it in the forefront, your subconscious is remembering what that stands for, what that means, and what it means to you. And I think that's so important, is to play around with that and what you surround yourself. Like his office is probably so magical. What you create, the space for yourself, is so important. And I like to bring that to my clients as well.
Can you tell me what a mala is? Because I don't know that I know that word.
So I'm actually wearing one. This is my intention at the moment. It has 108 beads. Traditionally, it's used in Buddhist prayer. Also, rosary also has the same amount of beads. It's usually in a prayer session. Going through each bead is a prayer or whatever. For me, it would be my intention. Or if I'm doing mantra, which I also do Sanskrit mantras I have shared online. And you can just go through each bead, and it's just kind of counting through. You don't have to do 108, but it's kind of a sacred number. So it kind of stands out in that kind of tradition. But yeah, I like to create them because it's also aesthetically very pleasing to the eye. It's something you want to embody. And if I can have you wearing it, it's just bringing that around with you, setting that intention and taking it around with you. So if you have, let's say you're going to get on stage and you have some sort of something to share, but you need to embody that presence of who you've already set yourself to be and want to embody, and you take it with you.
I think it was so cool though, like how we like met first and you pulled cards, and then, you know, we talked about this before we had a consultation, and then you like intuitively go and hand select the beats that are like calling to you and the colors. And like when she presented it, it was like just this like magical, like amazing thing. I'm like, oh my God. I was like so excited to experience it. And mine was really about like self-love and acceptance and like being held and like, and it's so cool. So that is like one of my favorite things about you. Like, I think that was such a cool experience to go through with you.
Right. Yeah. I remember we were doing a little bit of inner child stuff as well. So I made it a little younger, you know, that sweet.
Yeah. It's like pink and green and pastel. It's really sweet. I love it so much. It's on my altar right now, hanging off my unicorn horn.
Oh, like it gives me chills, but to think of, I mean, it is such a vulnerable thing to present something to somebody that is basically an experience of their soul, kind of.
Yeah, I like that. That's a great narration. I love that. But exactly that. I love to just kind of step into your shoes a little bit and reflect to you what I see and show you that piece of you that you're looking to discover.
When people are working with you, does it feel like kind of a mutual, we know when this relationship needs, you know, has fulfilled itself, or it feels complete to you at a certain point, and you articulate that to them of like, I feel like this is a good pausing point for you? Or how does that process work, like the offboarding?
Offboarding. It seems like kind of like leaving high school, right? It's like you're being like, go, let's reach the world. It can be an enjoyable process. I typically work with ceremonies and ceremony involved. So there's like some sort of threshold crossing. I think ceremonies are really important. Typically work astrology too. I kind of pay attention to moon cycles or whatever's happening for you in your chart. I think it's really important to use the energetics in the best way possible. So I kind of pay attention to that space as well. So not only just what we're experiencing and how far you've come, I just pay attention to that energetic rule that's also happening as above, so below kind of thing.
That's so cool. I'm glad I asked.
Yeah. But I think ceremonies are really important because just like graduation, like it's a graduation, and not like I won't always be there. Like people can always come back and check in and see me, and if you're having something go on. But mostly I actually haven't had that where people need to come back. It hasn't showed up for me. I reach out occasionally just to check in, but so far so good.
Yeah, we've interviewed a fair amount of spiritual business leaders. We're pretty drawn to them. We're very witchy and love everything woo. And we've had two experiences, at least as far as I see. Like some people have a really hard time having the energetic exchange of money and figuring out how to price themselves as a spiritual business. And other people are like, oh, it's no problem for me because it, like one of our psychics, Mel, she said, I get sick if I don't charge people enough money because the energetic exchange is so important that in order for me to do my work, it has to be that way. So I think there's some mind shifts that some people have to make and others don't. But have you had any, you said you didn't pay for or you didn't want to monetize your art, which is an important hobby. I understand that feeling for sure. And I'm curious if you had any of that energetic exchange financial thing, because I can imagine it's a struggle to be like, what do I price? Like, you know.
I love this discussion only because I'm working with a money coach at the moment. Her name is Dorothy Spence. I've been going through this like women's money coaching for a while, and that like she calls it like a gnarly knot, right? That we have crazy knot tied up with money, and just kind of like how you experienced it, especially growing up, like if you didn't have money. But I realized that when it comes to money, I've accepted that it's not the space that I don't want it. I just kind of already have that stability, even if it's not coming to me. So there definitely needs to be an energetic exchange, but it does not have to be monetary for me. And I realized that that's an okay thing to accept, because for a while I felt very shame for that. Like, oh, I'm supposed to ask for a ton of money. I'm supposed to have self-worth, right? But maybe my self-worth is you decided to, I don't know, make something for me. That to me is like a cherishing kind of bartering thing of like, what do you have to offer that also we can exchange here? Because I don't find that that's something that I need. Now, if it was just me on my own, I didn't have my husband to support me, things might be different. And I might also have that need to have that exchange in a monetary space. But for me at the moment, it's not what I need. Maybe I need to leave the house and check out my garden with me and like maybe, teach me how to like do some things, or take me through the woods and find some edibles, like, these kind of things, and wild harvesting, or, anything. I think I had one person, she actually would make me meals, and it was actually lovely. It was a lovely exchange, and it was just what I needed, that nourishment. And it is exactly what she needed. And it just worked for us. But I do money exchange as well. I do have, traditionally I do about $75 an hour, which I think is pretty rational and okay if that's where you're at. Because for some people without giving money, they don't feel this program or in it with me. And they don't have that connection. And it, like I said, like I feel like the whole aspect of who I am is it's just going to be based on who you are, and where you're at. I'm going to meet you where you're at.
Yeah. Well, and it's not just for spiritual businesses either, because my grandfather, I think anything can be called a spiritual business. I believe that what he did when he's a periodontist, he retired, he's 94 now, he retired 3 years ago. He made dentures by hand. He would fix people's teeth that were messing with their gums. He would be able to feel where the groove was off. And it was very much an art for him and still is. And a lot of his years in business, I mean, he was in business 60 plus years. People would give him chickens. They would give him horses. Like, if they couldn't pay, they were so grateful that the energetic exchange, like you're saying, it doesn't have to be money always. It's nice to say, like, I care about this thing, so I'm putting something down in exchange for it. But as one of our friends, Calliope, told us, who's been a guest as well, she really helped me in my business when I believe the story of COVID really taking a hit to my business, and it was cut in a third. And she helped me see how abundance can show up in so many different ways for me. And I started looking at where I was abundant in my life. And then the financial abundance also came. But until I made that shift of what abundance looked like to me and how I wrapped my ego and my worth into like bringing in a certain amount of money, I wasn't able to see how there was abundance surrounding me. So I love that you're just open to all sorts of different kinds of energy exchanges and money.
And money. Yeah, when I was doing my my Shri Tantra practice, it's all about that inner abundance, right? So it's finding abundance in all these spaces. And I feel like when I went through that program and that practice of really finding that abundance everywhere, like you described, it really opened up the door for prosperity as well. Was a natural thing of flow of energy for us. And I opened all the doors to everywhere else of where I was witnessing and receiving all this abundance.
Funny how that works and also not.
So you said you've listened to the podcast. We do wrap up with a set of rapid fires. Whitney, do you want to take it away?
I'm ready. Yes. What are you proudest of in your business right now?
Connection. Being open to connecting.
Yeah, 2-4. Tell us about a book you read or podcast you listened to that changed the way you're thinking about your life or your business.
Oh my gosh, I'm still keep going back to the book of Atomic Habits and the way that our brain works. And yes, love it. Gotta get it. Read it.
Oh, okay. You're I have a life philosophy of if I hear about something 3 times, then I need to, my angels of the universe. Now I've gotten to the point where I'm like, okay, 2 times is enough for me to come over the edge. I feel like I've heard about Atomic Habits a million dozen times.
And it helps me create the habits and the habitual patterns with my clients, knowing how that works. Like I said, I love that sciencey background. Love it.
Yeah.
And so I like knowing how the mind works and how the brain works. And so if I can create that structure for my client, that is ideal. So I just love it. Great book.
Okay. You push me over the edge because now I'm like, God, everybody mentions that book and I still haven't read it. What would your last meal be?
My last meal? Oh, Thanksgiving dinner.
I love that. Nobody said that before, I don't think. I love things. That's
a hot take.
Yeah, what's your favorite things?
Stuffing and gravy and all that good stuff. Yeah.
What a way to go out. It makes me think of Hooked. They have the whole table full of, it's just smorgasbord.
I love that movie.
What is the best business purchase you've made in the last 6 months under $100?
Oh, interesting. I think it would be my painting easel. I never had an easel before, but usually I have people paint on the floor, but I think standing up to paint has been really, really changing because you can move your body. And so all these expressional, just getting the body movement out on the board. It's been great. I actually really enjoy that. I never had an easel before. I'm a crazy person.
Does that mean you have people come to your house and paint?
Mm-hmm. I work with people outside, but mostly I have them come to my space if we're going to be in a smaller space, if we're doing meditation, body movement, painting, stuff like that. Yes.
We still have your painting idea for the workshop events. We are going to do that. We just got very, very backtracked. We are going to do it.
You get time. Right.
And finally, what is lighting you up lately?
My garden. I am definitely a big planter, big gardener, and being around plants has been definitely what lights me up lately, watching everything grow and blossom and bloom. And it's very vibrant and exciting at the moment.
You and my husband, he's like rediscovered his green thumb, and he's like replanting babies from his plants. I forget the name of that, but there's like a bunch of reels and TikToks going around lately of like plant daddy stuff. So I'm like, look at you, you're such a plant daddy. And he is just propagating like crazy.
Love it. Yeah. Get in it, get the soil. It's so, it just feeds the soul, right? It's really great. And the microbes are good for you.
So
Before we let you go, Erika, can you tell our audience how they can find you and connect with you?
Okay, so currently I am on a social media hiatus. However, the best way to really reach me is through social media. I do have a website. It's a wreck. I'm not a tech person. I need to get someone involved in that. I'm sure you girls can help me find someone who does that. But yeah, I would say social media at Home for Heart is my name on Instagram would be the best way to find me. And you can reach me through, I think my email address is on there as well. So email me on that space.
awesome. We love learning about people like you. And I love this theme that we've had of the people that we've been talking to and attracting, especially in your space, where they're like, so it's so hard to describe what I do because I really look at you and what you need in that moment. And I love that as a life movement right now for people. So it's really about just getting with Erika and experiencing your magic. And I am excited to see how your business continues to bloom and grow and evolve.
Thank you. I'm so glad I got to be on your podcast today, guys. I love chatting with you, and just seeing your faces is lovely. So thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. And thanks to our listeners for tuning in to another episode of The Coast. We will see you when we see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.